Can you really, and I'm going to do this every time, do it all, have it all, as a female in our industry? And I think we've been kind of flirting around this conversation the entire day today. For those of you, even if you have kids or if you don't have kids, whatever 500 roles that you have in your life, you are trying to, and I think, Wendy, you said life integration, and I just love that phrase. I mean, we're all trying to do this life integration thing, whether you're a mom, a sister, a daughter, a friend, a partner, whatever you happen to be today. And by the way, I have my little plug, my Windows 8 phone in front of me. My notes are on here, so I am not texting to Wendy's question again. But I just jotted a couple little notes thinking that if I forgot something, I might have to reference this here little device. So my quick story is, and I think, Rose, you said a lot of this stuff. A lot of us are Shy It Day alumnus here, I guess, which I'm looking at Nancy, and I mean a lot of people that I see around the room coming from that environment where, and I think Tor said it as well earlier, creativity and ideas were king. That's a very interesting theme. I've actually jotted a couple summary points for myself that, if anybody over a drink wants to compare notes, I'd love to, because it's a very interesting theme that when you learn, the idea is, and we have a saying at CPB, idea is boss. And you focus on the brand, and you focus on the work, and you focus on all that stuff, you sort of forget what gender you are or are not, and you sort of forget what role you're playing or not. And I think that's a pretty important piece of learning for all of us and for all you guys who are learning to navigate all of this stuff, because it doesn't feel as tough to, quote unquote, try to do it all if you're passionate about that and if you're striving for that. So a lot of my background is around following around. By the way, all these guys who were up on the panel before, I think I've followed them around in some way, shape, or form to try to work with them or try to learn from them or maybe try to marry one of them, but we'll talk about that later. And, I think it's really, you look for great people to work with, and that's been my entire career. Shy It Day, I went there, I took a demotion to get there. I wanted to learn from the greats. I wanted to work with Lee Clow. I worked with Lee Clow. I kept working there for 11 years because I kept having fantastic people to learn from and grow from and great brands that I could really breathe life into. And some of it was luck, and some of it was good timing, and some of it was I can do that job even though I'm probably not ready for it for another 3 years. And just really seizing upon every opportunity. I mean, even to the point of, we won a little piece of business, and I know Susan touched this so much, but we won a little tiny piece of Mars. What year was that? 2000. It was a tiny assignment, and at the time, Shy It Day was the maverick agency, kind of going against the bigger agencies they had. And for me, I just kind of said, well, does anybody know how to do packaged goods? No. Well, I do, or I will pretend I do. Does anybody know how to do global brands? No. Okay, I'll pretend to do that too. And you just make it up as you go along, and you settle into these roles, and that's been my entire career. And I was lucky enough to meet Chuck Porter a couple of times along the way in that trajectory. We did some lovely work for Pedigree, and Chuck, for those of you that don't know, is a huge dog lover. And he really loved the work we did on Pedigree, which ended up getting me to a conversation with him about it in a very strange situation in a bar in Toronto, don't ask. And next thing I know, I'm working at CPB and helping kind of transform that brand. So that's a little bit of my background. I do have twin boys. They're 11. I've been a mom, a wife, not a wife, all that kind of stuff. So I guess in our quest to do it all, I think I guess that's why I was chosen to moderate this particular topic, because I try to do that every day, and I do think it is life integration, and I don't think it's so much about choices. You do the best you can given what happens in your life. You find yourself pregnant, and yay, with twins, you do the best you can, and you figure it out. And by the way, Wendy, I was in the middle of the AT&T pitch at the time, and I kept holding this board in front of my belly for a very long time, because in those days, you just didn't want to be the one female who was one of the first females at Shy It, very pregnant. And you just do the best you can. And I hope that we don't have to do those things anymore necessarily, but you do. You come up with these opportunities and you just keep going. So I wanted to share one little quote which I think sets this up really, really well. And this is from one of my favorite books. It's from the Tina Fey book. And she says, "The topic of working moms is a tap dance recital in a minefield." And she continues on. She said, "What's the rudest question you can ask a woman? How old are you? What do you weigh? When you and your twin sister are alone with Mr. Hefner, do you have to pretend to be lesbians? No." The worst question is, how do you juggle it all? How do you juggle it all? People constantly ask me with an accusatory look in their eyes, implying, you're fucking it all up, aren't you? And I think that's a really interesting way to think about this, because it makes you think that you are never good enough in any one of these various roles. And I guess this panel and this discussion can maybe be some tips, some ideas. We talked very much about being honest, warts and all. It's a safe environment, and hopefully you guys can get a lot out of that. And if you're too, one thing I will say, if you're too, I think Maria asked it earlier, how can we all help? Everybody in this room should take on a mentor or a mentee, at least one, if not 5, and really help those people. And if you guys are shy about asking any of these questions while we're up here, you know, please ask later at cocktails, please follow up. Do not be shy. Do not be shy to ask for it, because we all have to help each other.